So actually, it's being predictive, but it's also about being predictable. And first off, a confession. When I get up in the morning, I'm really predictable, right? I get up, and if I look at my agenda for the day or for the morning, I follow a really strict line. And the good thing is I don't really think about it. And I think the same goes for a lot of us, is that at the beginning of the day, or actually during most of the day, we are really predictable. We are actually going through some very practical, unified things. The interesting thing is that if we are predictable, then it's actually possible to start predicting. So it's actually possible to start predicting on a really high level about what is going to happen and about what can actually be used and changed. And from my perspective and from our perspective, being able to predict the future, that is a really strong competitive advantage. For a company being able to look into the future and actually understand what is about to happen, what is going on, that gives you a massive edge. And to Darren, now you promised me that I would fail, but the challenge is that actually for the last year and a half, we have finished our digital transformation. So to prove it, what we've done is something stupid from a capitalistic point of view, because we are only working 4 days a week and 30 hours all 50 people of the organization. That was our way to prove that this is possible and it can be done. So,
the wrong guy sat down.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, he can still make it. So the point here is saying that if it's possible to do something like that and look into the future, then it really becomes interesting, because then we can start competing on something else and we can start to build something else by using data like we did. So, are any of you people in here superstitious? Challenge is that we actually are. All of us in some way or form. I bet all of us know our star sign, zodiac. All of us has at one point had our palm read or had tarot cards put down in relation to look into the future to get some sense about what's going on. And the challenge is that actually this interest in the future has been out of reach for a long time. It hasn't been available, it hasn't been accessible, because there has been too much gap in relation to the information we had and what was already there, or what we wanted to know. And the difference between the time it took to analyze something and actually moving forward just gave us a problem. When we talk about predictability, pigeons are probably the best example, right? Everybody look at this pigeon and say, okay, why is it called Mr. Fantastic? Well, Mr. Fantastic is a special pigeon in the sense that he is the pigeon that has been sold basically because he's predictable and fast for the highest amount ever traded, right? So a good predictable thing, like a pigeon or a person, has a huge monetary value. And Mr. Fantastic was traded for €500,000, right? That's a lot for a pigeon with a 4-year lifespan, and you buy it when it's 2. But in reality, the challenge is that in a lot of ways, we are all like Mr. Fantastic. We are very predictable in our own way, right? And a lot of it can, when we look at our lives, we can go back and we can actually reflect it in saying that it's about thinking fast and thinking slow, that a lot of the things that we do during our days are thinking slow, or thinking fast, sorry. So when we think fast, we don't think about what we're doing, we run on autopilot, and that really makes us predictable. So it might be in the morning, it might be when you go home from work. So I had the discussion with somebody earlier saying, when we go home from work, how often do we actually take another route? How predictable are we in our patterns, right? And this predictability can actually be used in understanding a lot of motivation that goes on when we're supposed to communicate to people, when we're supposed to act, and when we're supposed to engage. Because it also means that we can map when people are open for communication, right? So from a business perspective, this predictability is a massive opportunity. Challenge is that it's not only when we think fast, it's also when we think slow. Now I know when you show something like this as a PowerPoint, you will automatically right now be sitting there reflecting on which one is the right one. You cannot see an assignment like this without trying to solve it, right? So you were looking at this, and this is a test from Mensa, looking into if you want to apply there. And in reality, most of you have been sitting there and say, okay, the right solution is D, right? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but the right solution is D. But what if I told you D, we removed D as an option? Now I'm actually forcing you to think slow. Is the assignment impossible, or will it still be possible to solve the assignment if we remove D as an option? And for most of us, because we're lazy in our thinking, and we're not thinking beyond this, and this is also what makes us predictable, is that we fail to see that there's another option. But in reality, the option here is that, yes, if we remove D, then all the 4 other ones are equally likely to be the next one. Because in reality, it would mean that we had a sequence of 4 and then something radically different. So it's just because D is there that we think that it's linear, right? If there wasn't a D option, all the other ones were equally likely to be the one. So a lot of the answer to this, and actually tapping into this and using this predictability, is by tapping into data. So we've been working with data for a lot of years, and what we see is there's come an accessibility to data that is completely new, in the sense that right now the world is opening up in so many different data sources. IBM had the beautiful example saying that in last year, 80% of all data gathered in history of mankind was gathered last year. And this number will only grow. Self-driving car that drives gathers 2 gigabytes of data every minute, right? So we have massive sources of data all over the world, actually, where we're able to tap into it. And it doesn't have to be personal data. A good example is saying we made an algorithm for a Danish company that looks into traffic accidents. Right? And by having an algorithm that goes in and map where is an accident going to happen, where is it likely that it's going to happen, or when will there be need for an ambulance, it's actually possible to predict with a certain amount of precision where they should place their vehicles so they can be there faster. And that improves their business because it increases the efficient time they have. They have less downtime. So it's something that impacts their business directly. Now, the big change in this has actually been the cost of cloud and the cost of machine learning. These 2 areas have really dropped radically in price. So now it's accessible for everybody. And companies like Amazon and Microsoft and Google and Adobe are all competing for your attention in relation to getting you to build your businesses on their stack. Because they know that if you build your vision of the future and your models on the future on their stack, then you will be tied into their business for the long run. So the potential for them in their growth is really tied into mapping and getting into your business at this point. So looking forward, it's about models like this. It's going in and having the data that we can actually go in and try to predict the future within seconds. We have done models that gives you the answer back to a given question within 1 second. So any type of question can actually start being modeled and added by any type of data to enhance this experience. I think the best example when we look right now, and the most interesting project we're working on, and to go and show the scale of the potential of this, is actually a predictive online support. So based on how you behave online, it will actually start serving you the answers that you haven't found yet. So it will say people with this pattern are actually looking for this, so we will start solving your problem potentially before you're even aware you have it. Right? So it might be something specific about you wanting to find where a store is located, and then we can see, based on the pattern of visitors on the site, that this pattern actually goes in and ties into that specific query. So by helping people answering their problems before they know they have them, the relationship between company and customer just strengthens. And it's just something that can happen automatically. It's not something that requires people in the process. So this is all good and fine, right? But there is also a downside to it, or an issue that we have to reflect on. So sometimes these recommendation models also become self-fulfilling prophecies. We have all been to Amazon, Netflix, and getting recommendation based on our behavior, what we should read or see next. But what happens actually is that we lose complexity in who we are. Because if I get recommended 3 books because you guys read those 3 books, then I will not bring anything new to the equation. We will all be schooled in the same thing. There will be no outliers because we all see the same series and we all follow the same recommendations and read the same books. So we will have mega sellers and no sellers, right? So that is an interesting challenge. The reason why it's important is that this world where everything happens so fast is also tied to importance for you guys, saying we need to think slow. Because in our lives, it is not when we think fast that we actually remember things. It's not the moments we stop and savor, the moments that we just happen. Often when we go home from work, we can't really even remember how we got home, right? It's the moments where we stop and interrupt ourselves that is actually interesting. And the interesting thing in relation to this is, a couple of years back, I had a discussion with a lot of people. It was like a good theme, saying, if I gave you a manual to life, saying if you followed this manual every day of your life, you would never have a concern and you will live a troubleless life. I didn't have anybody who said they wanted that manual, because this is at the cost of free will. We want the freedom to make our own decisions. And the concern here is that the more automated and the more predictive and the more everything that the world becomes, we lose our free will in relation to actually making our own decisions. So from that, and this is actually a quote of myself, it's something I've been annoying my employees with. Time is not something you have, it's something you take, right? You can't expect somebody to come and say, hey, you look busy, I'll do your job so you can have some time, right? Time is something you have to take, it's something you have to decide on using. So the next time you walk out and you see a pigeon somewhere, stop and think, saying, is what you're doing right now that important, or is it something you should interrupt to try to get something else out of your life and break my algorithm? Thank you.